Hi everyone, I'm Amy from Helping Minds. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's session is to inform you all a little bit about the NDIS Access Project. I'm really excited to be presenting this session today, and hopefully you will find it as beneficial as I did putting it all together. So just a couple of things before we go into the slides. First of all, the session is recorded, just so you are aware. And secondly, I just ask that any questions that you have, you hold off until the end. You are more than welcome to put them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the page. Otherwise, if you click on the little icon, you can raise your hand, we can take you off mute, and you can ask the questions verbally. If you're not comfortable doing it in this setting, then please feel free to contact me directly after the session, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has. My phone number and my email address are both listed in the slides. So whatever you're most comfortable with, we will go with. So we'll get things started. I'm just going to share with you a slideshow. So again, welcome to the session and thank you for joining. The first thing I'd like to run through is just an acknowledgement. So thank you so much, and we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we live, work, learn and care, and pay respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and their elders, past, present and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge the individual and collective expertise of people with a living or lived experience of mental health, alcohol and other drug issues, and the families and carers who provide support and have their own lived or living experience. We recognise the vital contribution and the value and the courage of individuals who have shared their perspectives and personal experiences for the purpose of learning and growing together to achieve a better outcome for all. So just a bit of an overview of the NDIS Access Project. So some of you may have heard a little about it and some will know nothing at all. So I'm just going to kind of go through what the project is about. So the overview of the project is to help people navigate the National Disability Insurance Scheme, otherwise known to everyone as the NDIS. As we all know, the application process can be a very challenging task. The Mental Health Commission has funded the NDIS Access Support Project to assist people with psychosocial disabilities to test their eligibility and apply for an individual support package through the NDIS. So we at Helping Minds have collaborated with the individual and other services to help people understand, engage in and complete the NDI Access Project. So NDI Access process, getting my words twisted. So my role is basically to help people from the very start through to the very end. So it can be an extremely overwhelming process, and having someone there to support them can make a huge difference to people. So without support, people who may be eligible might be missing out on the services they need at the time they need it. And I see this on a daily basis. There are so many people out there who need support, and I'm sure all of you would have seen the same thing. People are needing the support, but they don't know who to ask, where to go for the help, or it's just too overwhelming, so they don't ask anyone. I've seen so many referrals coming through where people have either applied for the NDIS in the past and it's been declined and they're just too overwhelmed to apply again, or they didn't really know that they were eligible for the support and the NDIS. So it is a really important project, and it's been great working with people to help them get the supports that they need. So in addition to the above, the project's particular focus is on supporting consumers at risk of experiencing homelessness or people who are currently living in that space, consumers in supported residential services, consumers not engaged or pending discharge from the public mental health treatment services, and consumers referred by the Office of Public Advocate. We've had a lot of referrals coming through from all these different avenues, and it's great because I'm dealing with people who normally would fall through the cracks. So it's really, really great that we're able to help people who without this project wouldn't be getting the support that they need. So I've actually had the opportunity to visit people in all different scenarios since I've started doing this project, from refuges, crisis accommodation, hostels, I've been out to hospitals, and then also helping people in their own residential space. So it's a very rewarding role, and it's great to be helping those people that would otherwise be missing out on the support that they really need. Now, with the eligibility of the project, there's a few things that are required. So you need to be between the age of 18 and 65, be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident, have a psychosocial disability caused by an impairment which is likely to be permanent, and have undergone evidence-based treatments that have not relieved or cured your impairment. Now, this part is assessed on an individual basis. So please feel free to still send any referrals through, or if you have anyone you think that may be eligible that hasn't had a lot of treatments, because we can assess it individually. There have been some examples where people can't have treatment because it isn't actually going to help whatever their diagnosis is. It can actually be more detrimental than helpful to them. So that one is assessed on an individual basis. And any questions around that, you are more than welcome to ask. If you have a referral that you think you'd like to send through, I can definitely help out with that. Now, how to refer. So we basically accept referrals from anyone. So no discrimination here. Of course, medical professionals, we've had a lot of referrals coming through from hospitals, clinical teams. As I said, I've had quite a few from different refuges and crisis accommodation. People can also self-refer. I've had a few of these come through. So if people think, look, I really just need some help, they can definitely send through a referral. And also family, friends, and carers. This is also a really big one where I've had quite a few people who are actually family and a carer, as we know they often go hand in hand, and they really just need some extra support. So again, encourage people to send referrals through. In terms of applying, you'll see a little QR code there, which you're welcome to scan on your phone while this slide is up. Pre-warning, it does have my photo on it, so you will see my face. The other option is the email address that's listed there. So the NDIS transition at Helping Minds is an email address that I monitor. My mobile number is also listed, so please feel free to call me at any point if you have any questions about potential referrals, about this presentation, any questions. I am more than happy to help. There's also our website, and there's an online referral form there, which will come through to the NDIS transition email address. And then I can respond via email, or if you would prefer to call, just pop your number in and I can give you a call. So lots of different ways to refer. Again, any referral that comes through, I will have a look over to make sure they're eligible. We do, with every referral that comes through, we do actually send them to the Mental Health Commission. Because they have funded this project, they do have to approve all referrals. So as long as the person is eligible, there would be absolutely no reason that the Commission would push back on it. But if for some reason there are any issues, I can talk through what would be necessary to re-refer the person, or I can help out with some other options. So please feel free to send through any referral and we can go from there. This is what the referral looks like. So this is the first page from the Mental Health Commission. It just gives a bit of an overview about the project. As you can see, it does mention here the dates that the project is running. So it is really important here to note that the funding for this project actually does end on the 14th of April. So any referrals that you have or are thinking about sending through, please do. It is time sensitive. So any referrals that we do receive after the 14th of March, so that's about a month away, they will be assessed on an individual basis. It's just because it's quite a complex process and it does take time. So please still feel free to send them through, but just keep in mind that after that date, the project won't be running. So you'll see here that there's 3 organisations that have been funded to provide support. So Helping Minds, 360 and NEMI. So all of us are working very closely together with the Mental Health Commission to help as many people as possible to get access requests for the NDIS. So that, I won't read through everything, but that's basically a little overview, you know, of what the project is about. The next page is the most important. So this is the referral form. So you'll see the client's details, pretty straightforward there. So name and gender, date of birth, their demographics. The primary diagnosis is definitely something that needs to be put in there. It needs to be a primary psychosocial diagnosis. Anything that's physical can still be added as long as we know that their primary diagnosis is psychosocial. Medications and any like a very brief risk assessment can be popped in there. If you know if the person's applied for NDIS in the past, you can pop it in there. Again, I always ask these questions when I meet the person, so it isn't really a huge deal if you forget to ask them. And then just the source of the referral. So if it's someone in a clinical setting, you would just pop your details in there. Again, some of this isn't always relevant because it can be a self-referral, so not too much stress over that bottom part. And then the consent form. So if anyone is referring someone, it is important that obviously they consent to this. So just their name, date of birth, and signature. And then all of this is sent through to the Mental Health Commission. So in regards to accessing the referral form, it's not actually on our website, but if you contact me directly, as I mentioned, through the email address, call me, I can send you this referral and then you can forward it through. You can also contact the Mental Health Commission directly to get the referral form. But as I said, I'm more than happy to help with sending that to anyone that has any potential referrals. So once I receive the referral, this is basically where the process starts. So first of all is making initial contact with both the referrer and the client. I feel like it's really important to have contact with both of people to keep everyone in the loop. So once a referral comes through, I make initial contact with the referrer within 24 hours and generally the client within 24 to 48 hours. Just an introduction to say, hey, we've received your referral. This is what I do, here to help, and feel free to call me if you have any questions in the interim. Now, with the project, we are also working in partnership with the Consumers of Mental Health WA, or COMWA for short, as you've probably all heard of them. Now, they are offering peer support as part of the project. This is optional, but it is also very beneficial. So anyone that is interested in receiving peer support will receive a call from someone at COMWA to, again, introduce themselves, explain their role, and then COMWA contact me, and I then make contact again with the client to arrange an initial meeting. Now, depending on kind of the wait times with COMWA calling someone, sometimes I will just go ahead and book the meeting with the client. The referrer is always more than welcome to attend the meeting. Sometimes it can put the client at ease, having someone at the meeting that they know. With the first meetings, we can either do house visits, or obviously if they're in a hospital setting, we can go out to hospitals, or, you know, crisis accommodation. I've been out to quite a few of them. And, you know, for some people, they actually like to just go out and meet at a cafe. It's a good chance for them to get out of the house and they feel more comfortable in a public setting. So again, I'm open to meeting someone anywhere that they're comfortable with. Once I meet the client, the first meeting goes for about an hour, just kind of run through the project, what to expect, any questions they have. A lot of clients already at this point are quite overwhelmed because they're not really sure what to expect, or they've had really bad experiences in the past with applying for NDIS, and it's just all too much. So it's really about putting the client at ease, explaining that I'm there to help through the whole process from beginning to end. So as I mentioned, from the point of referral, you know, I'm there to help the person. It is all about their choice and control. So if they want me to help them, you know, through every little step, I'm there. And if they're more confident with doing things themselves, then I step back and allow them to do it. But I'm contactable through the whole process. Now, a big part of applying for NDIS is the evidence. As I'm sure all of you know, you can't see someone's psychosocial disability. So we have to prove to the NDIS that it is a lifelong impairment and that all available treatment options that are suitable have been tried. The main part of this is what's called an evidence of psychosocial disability form, or you'll see on the screen it says EPD because that was a lot easier to write. So that form has to be completed by either a GP or a psychiatrist. The form is in two parts. So you will see part A, which is the part that's done by the medical professional, and then part B. Part B also needs to be completed, but there's a lot of different people that can assist with this. It can either be a support worker, which it actually says on the form, a support worker or most relevant person. In most situations, people that are applying for NDIS won't have a support worker. So it can be a family member, it can be someone in a clinical setting that's case managing the person. There's so many different options. I've even helped and filled out quite a few of these with the client. So whatever works, we just need to get that form together and then any evidence that's going to assist with the application. When I say evidence, it's things like discharge summaries. Not everyone is going to have them, but a lot of clients will have had hospitalizations over the years. And discharge summaries are really, really helpful to put with applications. If the client doesn't have copies of them, or if they're in a clinical setting and for some reason they don't have copies, we can do a freedom of information request and then I can assist with getting them. So again, there to support the client with accessing them, because even sometimes with asking the client to obtain this stuff can be overwhelming for them or triggering thinking back to times they've been in hospital. So we want to be there to help the person through this. Apart from discharge summaries, things like support letters are really helpful. So whether it's from the person that referred them, I've had letters from nurses, from case managers, psychologists. There's so many different options here, but support letters are really helpful. And then anything that proves what treatments they've tried and any medications they're on. So we collate all of that, get a little kind of portfolio together, and then at the point that everything is ready for submission, we book an appointment with an LAC. Now, an LAC is known as a local area coordinator. There's two different companies and they both work in partnership with the NDIS. So there's APM and Mission Australia. So as you'll see on the screen, it says MAR, again, was easier to write. Both of them help with these appointments. It just depends where the person is based. It's 100% based on the person's address. So you can't choose which organisation you go through. When you ring or when I ring to book the appointment, we give the address and they will tell us where it needs to be booked. Now, once we get to this point with an LAC, they make an appointment with the client and I usually attend because at this point, the client generally wants extra support. With the meeting, it's called a community connection meeting and it helps the client to kind of prepare for what's expected with the NDIS. It also gives them some options in the interim while they're waiting for their approval. So a lot of people are so isolated and this can help them to engage in community groups, different clubs, any hobbies they have. The LAC will go through a questionnaire with the client and kind of ask them, look, what are the goals that you're wanting from this session? What are you wanting from the NDIS? And from there, and I've seen it firsthand in the meetings, they're really great at finding resources for people. So you will find these meetings are quite long. They do go for about 2 hours, but they're really beneficial. At that point, and the client also has to show ID. So everyone is required to show 100 points of ID. In some circumstances, especially for clients living in the homeless space, this can be difficult, but again, I'm here to assist and we do what we can to get as much of their ID together. And if there's any issues, we can speak with the LAC. So again, that's not a reason to not apply if you don't have the ID. There are ways that we can look at getting around that. With these appointments, we can either do them face-to-face, which is generally the preferred method, but I've actually done some via Teams, and they can also do phone consults. So sometimes clients, it's just way too overwhelming for them to be in a meeting for 2 hours with a person they don't know, asking a lot of questions. So if I feel that once I've got to know the person and I've spoken to them and build this rapport with them, that it's not going to benefit them being in a meeting face to face, I will request that it's done via Teams or over the phone. So there's different options there. Once the meeting has gone ahead, the LAC kind of takes over from me. I'm still there in the background and I'm there to support the person as much as they need. The LACs are the ones that actually submit the applications. So all NDIS applications have to be submitted through an LAC. So they will submit the application. I would have provided them with all of the forms, the evidence, and then from there, the access request is submitted. Now, it does sometimes take a while to get a response, which is why it's good to have in place those other supports out in the community for the person. So they're still getting the support they need while they wait for an outcome. And again, I keep in touch with all of my clients. So even after the LAC meeting, in that interim, people call me and, just check in, see how they're going. I often get emails and texts from my clients just to say, hey. So, it's really nice to know that you're helping people even after that point where I'm not required as much. I still like to keep in touch with all of my clients. So that's a bit of an overview of like the process once the referral is received. I wanted to share a client journey with you. Now, this obviously isn't his real name. I changed it just for privacy reasons. So we're going to call him Tom. Now, this is actually a really nice story that I wanted to share with you all. So Tom was referred to me by Royal Perth Hospital, a department that is called MCOT, which is their mobile clinical outreach team. Most of you have probably heard of it. We have had quite a few referrals from them. Now, a little bit about Tom. When I met him, he was living in crisis accommodation. He was awaiting his own accommodation, but had no idea if or when that would happen, as we all know what the housing situation is like in Perth at the moment. He'd been living on the streets for years. He actually lived in his car, and yeah, it was quite a sad story, but he was the loveliest man. So when I met him for the first time, we met out at crisis accommodation with myself and the referrer. Now, Tom had a diagnosis of delusional disorder, anxiety, and depression, but this was compounded by other medical issues. So he did have some physical issues going on as well. But the psychiatrist determined that his psychosocial disability would be permanent. So the focus for me was helping Tom with the diagnosis of the delusional disorder, anxiety, and depression, not ignoring the fact that he did have physical issues as well. Now, just a little bit about the journey with Tom. So once I received the referral, I contacted the nurse that referred him, had a bit of a chat with her to get a bit of a background, and then I rang Tom and we had a chat. Very lovely man. Arranged the meeting, as I said, out at the crisis accommodation. In the first meeting, we basically went through the whole process. So, what NDIS is, because some people actually don't have a real understanding of it. So I explain what the NDIS is, what supports they can offer, the application process and what to expect, what support I can provide. And if COMA are in attendance, they will then provide peer support and explain their role and any expectations and possible outcomes. So there are different outcomes with the NDIS. So basically, as I'm sure you're aware, the options that we can have are basically that it's been approved, which is what we want. We want as many people approved as we can. Unfortunately, that's not as easy as it seems. The other option is it will come back as more evidence is required, which happens quite a lot. And the third one is declined. So I will run through that in a little bit, just so I don't get off track with my story about Tom. So once I'd met Tom, I worked very closely with the referrer to obtain evidence that we could use to support his application. Now, it was actually really helpful that she worked in the clinical setting because she had access to discharge summaries and letters from psychologists and psychiatrists, which are absolutely like gold when you're applying for NDIS. So we had all the evidence together. the psychiatrist who works through MCOT filled out the EPD, and the referrer, who is a nurse, filled out the second part. After I had all of this, and I had been liaising with Tom, he would often call me or message me just to say hi, or I would check in and see how he was going and if he needed anything. We agreed to meet again. Now, the most exciting part of this was that Tom actually obtained accommodation, which, even though I didn't know him very well, I just felt so excited for him. He had lived on the streets for years, and this is the first time he got his own house. So he was very excited to show me. So basically, I met with Tom at his house, and we just ran through basically the LAC meeting, and I prepped him for that, any questions he had, any concerns. And yeah, from there, I booked the appointment with the LAC. I managed to get him in really quickly. So again, time frames can vary with each referrer. So, and APM and Mission Australia do have different wait times. So it can be anywhere from literally the next day to get an LAC appointment up to 3 weeks. So just keep that in mind as well with timeframes of applications. So Tom saw the LAC. He didn't need me in attendance, although I offered. He's quite independent. Went and saw the LAC. The access was submitted. He did at the meeting also mention some physical issues, and then the LAC offered to add those into his application as well, so that everything was covered. And the good news is his access was approved. So this was very exciting for me. This was my first approval. Obviously, Tom was extremely excited. So not only now does he have his own house, but he's going to be getting NDIS. So I've offered to support him through the planning meeting and the implementation of the plan. Again, it's entirely his choice. If he wants me there, I'm happy to help. If not, the LAC can guide them through that. So that's just a bit of a good news story, to end the note. Now, I'd love to open up the floor for any questions. I did, prior to the session, actually have a couple of questions emailed through to me. So I'm just going to quickly run through those with you. So the first question was, how long does an application take? Now, in terms of time frame, it really can vary. So from the time I receive the referral to the time the access request is put through, I would generally say between 1 to 2 months. Again, it really depends how long it takes to collate the evidence, if the client is willing to see their GP or psychiatrist to get the form completed, and how long it takes for the LAC meeting to take place. So as a time frame, 1 to 2 months, I've seen some happen a lot quicker and some have taken a lot longer. But I like to be very upfront with the client and let them know that it's not like a week later that they're going to have NDIS. It is a long process. The other question that I was asked is, what happens if, like I mentioned before, there's 3 outcomes? It comes back as either more evidence is needed or it's declined. Now, again, I work with the client through this. So if it's declined, there are other options. The LAC will go through those options with the client. We don't just leave them and say, sorry, you can't have NDIS and there is no other support. I can also look at external options for the client for supports that they need. If more evidence is required, this is where I would work very closely with both the referrer and the client to find any further evidence that would support their application. And again, working closely with the LAC to resubmit it. And then in the interim, making sure that they still have any supports they need, which generally would have been formed through that community connection meeting at the very beginning. So just because they get that letter back saying we need more information or you're not eligible, it's not the end of the road for people. There is still a lot of help out there. So I'm going to open up the floor now to anyone that has any questions, any feedback, anything at all. So with questions, you can write them in the Q&A chat at the bottom of the screen. If you would prefer to ask them verbally, then you can put your hand up. There's a little icon at the bottom, and then we can take you off mute so you can speak. Or if you're not comfortable asking them in this setting with all these other people here, as I said earlier, you're more than welcome to call me or email me after the session, and I can help you with any questions or comments or feedback or anything that you have about today's session. So did anyone have any questions that they would like to ask?
Hi, Amy. So I've got a few questions that are coming through the chat, so I'll
Yeah.
pass them over to you. Okay, so I've got one here that says, as a parent, what is the legal age that I can submit an application for my child? I have submitted twice to NDIS age 15 and have been rejected.
Right. So with this project, we are only taking on people who are above the age of 18. So the requirements are to be aged between 18 and 65 to be eligible. Obviously, people under the age of 18 can still apply for NDIS, but it's not part of this project. I could certainly look into some options for you after the session if you would like to call me or email me, and I can see if I can assist you, but it wouldn't be something that we could actually take on as part of the project. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Amy. We have another one here from Bruce, who missed the first part of the session, who's asked, will the support be available after the 14th of April once the current funding ceases?
So if we're already engaged with the client, then yes, we wouldn't just cut off the support we're offering. So if I'm already engaged with someone, we will try our best to support them through to the very end, but we wouldn't be able to take on any new referrals after that point in time. Obviously, people can still apply for the NDIS, but they wouldn't be able to come through this project.
Okay. I've got one person that's curious what the approval rate for the project has had so far. I know a lot of people with psychosocial disabilities and are denied NDIS.
Yeah, so it's definitely a good point. So I was discussing this at a meeting yesterday because only overall, Australia-wide, 30% of psychosocial applications are approved, which is such a low number. With the project, my referrals are at all different stages. I've been to quite a few LAC meetings, but so far I haven't had any declined. So I would take that as a win. Had a few approved, and quite a few are actually sitting in the space now of pending an outcome. And I've got a couple where more evidence is required, which I'm working on. So, but I take the no decline as a win. So hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Amy. Got another one here. Collating evidence is always a challenge. Do you
Mm.
provide hands-on assistance with this part, or is it up to the client to obtain?
No, or I can definitely help with that. It's a big part of the process. So as I mentioned, if anything is required and the client doesn't have copies of it and we can't get it through the referrer, we do a freedom of information request, and I can assist with all of that. I'm there to help them through the whole process.
Fantastic. Just jumping back to the top where Paula has answered, but there was a question, is this available to people in their regions?
Yeah, definitely. So I've actually had a referral from a regional area. It has to be within WA. This funding is for WA only, but anywhere I can help. Obviously, if it's not in Perth, I wouldn't be able to meet them face to face, but I can offer meetings like this over Zoom or Teams. I can call them, email them. So yeah, definitely can send through regional referrals.
Fantastic. I think that is all the questions, Amy, and I'm obviously conscious of the time as well.
Yeah, I know I spoke a lot. I really appreciate everyone coming to today's session and taking the time out of your day to be here. I hope it was beneficial. But as I said, if you do have any questions, please contact me after the session and I will be more than happy to help you. So yeah, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.